Steve Cooper, Rank Success, and this is another video in relation to the CVF competencies, the competency and values framework competencies, and there are 4 of them: public service, transparency, impartiality and integrity. So this one today is about impartiality, so it's one of the 4 CVF values, and as I've explained in previous videos, I have done some other videos, one on mapping your values, which you may want to have a look at, but I've also explained that a lot of these values, these concepts, these topics overlap with each other, so you may find honesty, integrity, professionalism, leadership, and your own values all overlapping, and that's exactly the situation really. It's for you to make sense of it and to try and bring it into some form of perspective as part of your preparation for a promotion selection process, because you know, unsurprisingly, a promotion process wants to look at, to examine, and to get an impression of your own values and how you'll lead. But there are these 4 policing values that are held up by the College of Policing. So I've got the guidance, as I have done previously for the other ones, with me at the moment. And as I say to people, you know, when you're thinking through and working through values, what's your first impression, your first understanding of the term or the value that you're being asked to consider? And impartiality, really, as most cops will know, is policing in a nutshell. But it doesn't always play out that way, and that's why it's always under constant scrutiny, and that's why it's a value that is held up. So if you look at the dictionary definition, it refers to equal treatment of all rivals and fairness. Applied to a person, it's about being not directly involved in a particular situation and therefore able to give a fair opinion or decision. Now, the College of Policing guidance says that impartiality is a value that links to the principles of fairness and objectivity from the Code of Ethics. So again, for all of these, your first port of call is the Code of Ethics. If you remember from my my previous video in relation to the competencies and the little free frameworks workbook I've got, it is the foundation stone. So the College of Policing, the Code of Ethics, the Policing Code of Ethics is the very foundation stone of what we're talking about, and that is why these values are anchored or referenced or cited in this CVF guidance. So the value links to the principles of fairness and objectivity from the Code of Ethics. As a police service, so more of a statement really, as a police service we must show impartiality through all our dealings with colleagues, partners and members of the public. This is achieved by being unprejudiced, fair and objective. We consider different sides of a situation and ensure that each side is given equal consideration. We don't favour one person or group over another, and acknowledging that discrimination increases feelings of unfairness and makes our jobs harder to do. We must not allow personal feelings, beliefs or opinions to unfairly influence our actions in any situation, and we assess each situation based on its own merits, ensuring we're fair and consistent in our actions. And that really, most cops will probably sit there listening to this, say, hey, that's policing, that's it in a nutshell. You've just described what policing is, or what policing behaviour should be: impartial. It's an age-old concept as such. The last bit of that is we are clear in our rationale for the decisions or actions we take, ensuring that they are clear and evidence-based. So when we look at that, there's a kind of signpost or an indicator again to the NDM, which often overlaps across how you will demonstrate these values in the workplace, in your activity, in your policing experiences, and as leaders, as managers, as supervisors. So there's a clear reference to the expectation that if it's something that is more complex, you will have a rationale, a reason laid out, recorded, and that you'll use your professional judgment to do that in the context and requirements of that particular situation. Ensuring that your actions are clear and evidence-based, so accountability is built in there as well. So if we switch over to the specific behaviour guidance, the first one is I take into account individual needs and requirements in all of my actions. So you may flip that into a question straight away and say, well look, in terms of leading your teams through times of uncertainty at the moment, and you're looking to be promoted as a sergeant or inspector, how are you going to take account of individual needs and address the needs of the wider organisation, how are you going to address that conflict or balance? That's just one way in which you can start delving a little bit deeper into this value of impartiality, because whilst you might understand impartiality as a concept, actually weaving it in and out of your behaviours and being able to respond to it verbally or in written exercises or in a briefing or interactive exercise, it's a slightly different tack on it or take on it. I understand that treating everyone fairly does not mean that everyone is treated the same. And that's often a point worth talking about and digesting. So is treating everybody equally always the same as treating people fairly, or the same? So there's some issues for you to think about there. Some of you may go, I've got a clear answer for that, Steve, or not for me, but for a board, I'm not quite clear on how I think about that. And others might be saying, well, that's a good point, actually, I haven't really thought of that. Let's give it some more thought. And that's how you pick up insights into yourself, into these issues, into the framework, into the process of promotion, and how you can apply yourself to getting match fit, if you like, around this stuff, which should really sit with you as a newly promoted leader at all times. You should be promoted on your past behaviours and your track record, and that may or may not feature as part of a process. But processes for promotion should also be fair. And interestingly, people will often say, well, Steve, you've pointed out in some of your blogs that promotion isn't fair. And that's just a thinking point, really. I just pose that to you. It's one reality. You don't have to agree with it if you don't want to. But generally, I say that with the thinking behind it, that promotion isn't fair, because the people that actually do this work around the values, those that really start thinking through their evidence, and understanding the competencies and the frameworks, and understand how they're going to behave, and be able to tell a board what they will do and how they'll do it and why they'll do it, is the kind of stuff that gets rewarded through promotions. So some people just say, oh, you're teaching people to get through promotion boards, Steve, and I'm not. Far from it. I can't teach anybody anything. I think it was Socrates, Aristotle, or Plato, one of the great ancient philosophers, that said, I can't teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. And that's all I try and do, is make you think around these issues, because if you're not thinking around them, then they're not current in your head. And if they're not current in your head, you can't make the links when you're asked the questions in a promotion process. And the great thing with doing this work is you can sit down with a loved one, a family friend, a partner, and you can go through these issues and talk through them. You can record yourself on your phone and listen to yourself, and you'll hear yourself refine and distill these concepts to the point where you're actually able to talk about them meaningfully, with enthusiasm, and in the context of a promotion selection process. So anyway, I'm digressing. I'll move on to the other points. I communicate with everyone, making sure the most relevant message is provided to all. So there are key messages around mission, vision and values. And the mission, vision and values of the organisation are always important. If you're in any doubt, they are what lead you. That is the direction in which you should be headed as a leader, as a manager, as a supervisor. And if you think about that, the messages that you're putting through, and you're thinking about the links to mission, vision and values, the mission, vision and values are thinking filters for you. That's one way to think about them. They are thinking filters for you, and you can help align these values and behaviours with them. I make fair and objective decisions using the best available evidence. Well, ding, 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 there's the NDM again. You can see that the NDM is linked to lots of these points, these behaviours. So once you've read them, all of them, you can say, hey, I can already identify there are a number of key concepts that are effectively repetitive through this, and I feel comfortable with that. And the last one is I enable everyone to have equal access to services and information where appropriate. So however you think about that particular bullet point, that's around, everybody having equal access to policing services. Well, it's not an equal world, it's not a fair world, but the mission, should you choose to accept it, is to make that a little bit easier for people to do through your day-to-day decisions. I give my staff equal opportunities, fair opportunities through development opportunities in the workplace, so that they can achieve their hopes and their dreams and their aspirations in the job, and just use some of those behaviours to inform your understanding of this value, impartiality, along with the others sitting alongside it. And sometimes people say it's quite hard to start talking about the values, particularly in a board. So you'll find in my free downloadable book on the 4 pillars, which are the 4 values that support the 6 behaviours of the CVF. You'll find over here impartiality. So a trigger sentence of that is, look, as a leader, as a manager and as a supervisor, I will ensure that, or I will pay attention to, because these things are meaningful to me. So just conversationally weaving those things, they're not standalone separate things, they're part of who you are, they're part of what the CVF is, they're part of the promotion process, and they're also an element of a verbal response or a written response to a promotion selection process question. Okay, I think that's as much as I can kind of cover with impartiality in the short time I've got in this video. As I've said, if you want to see some really detailed examples of value statements, you can download a digital toolkit from my site, Sergeants, Inspectors or Chief Inspectors Digital Toolkit, and have a look at some of the value statements on there in detail. And I've said that on every video this year to help you get kick-started, gain some traction and momentum. There's a 20% discount code for your RS Guides 20 that you can use on my site to get that kickstart, that booster to your preparation. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I will look forward to doing another one very shortly. Thank you.